Okay, so we're going to continue reading the life of Rabbi Shmuel Horowitz. Last week we learned, he told us about how he went to different kivrei tzaddikim on Pesach Sheni. And now it's going to get up to Lag Baomer. So we're kind of following our own calendar today, because it was just Lag Baomer last week. It was very joyous in Meron, Baruch Hashem. So now Rabbi Shmuel Horowitz says, we're in Parak Vav in the sefer Yemey Shmuel Chelek Aleph. It says, and now it was getting closer to Lag Baomer, and the Breslov Chassidim from Yerushalayim were coming up. They were Rabbi Alter Ben Zion Kroskov and Rabbi Yaakov Zev Barzevsky. May their light shine. And Rabbi Yisrael Dov Odesser, who's Saba from the Nanach, and they all came and they were staying in the house of my uncle Rabbi Avner. And Rabbi Avner gave them their own room, and he honored them that they could stay there, and they stayed by my uncle till after Shabbos. And his son Peretz told them that there's somebody who's getting closer to Breslov, which is Rabbi Shmuel Horowitz, because at this point I don't think he really knew them yet. And he thought, and they thought that he was making fun of them, right? Because there wasn't really any Breslovers really in Tzfat then, except for like a few, And he also told me, this kid Peretz told me, Rabbi Shmuel Horowitz, that there's Breslovers in his house, and I didn't believe him. It was such a different world back then. You understand? Like today, there's Breslovers everywhere. Back then, it was like a chiddush, right? Because Rabbi Shmuel Horowitz says, until now, I was not zoichet to really see any Chasidei Breslov, right? And then afterwards, we were all together in Meron, how he's going to explain, right? And Rabbi Shmuel Horowitz says that I already had decided to stay in Meron until Shavuos, from Lag Baomer until Shavuos, right? By the cave of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, right? Because on Lag Baomer, when there's a lot of people, back then it was still a lot of people, but today it's even like triple, 100 times the amount. Rabbi Shmuel Horowitz says that it's hard to serve Hashem properly when there's so many people and there's dancing, all these things, right? And also, the week after Lag Baomer is the week of Yesod, which we just finished in counting the Sfira Sa'imer. This is a very, very big week, Rabbi Shmuel Horowitz says, for serving Hashem. And the main thing is to be in Meron. So he wanted to stay in Meron after it got quiet so he could learn Torah until Shavuos. And there's beautiful mountains and springs and all these things, and I could stay there and do these things. And also a lot of other kivrei tzaddikim besides Rabbi Shimon, of course. Right, the main kiver is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Shmuel says that you cannot find any chiyas like that in the world, and the special hisoyrus that is there, it is a taste of the Garden of Eden. He says, and he says that my whole coming close to Hashem and to Rabbi Nachman, and all my avodas Hashem and all my spoidus and all my chiyas and all my godliness and all my stuff that I do, it was from Rav Shimon. It's all from there. He says, and anything that is bought in the sefer Rabbeinu, that you're zoichet through the tzaddik, you could be zoichet there by Rav Shimon. Basically, he's saying that Rav Shimon's kever is like very, very special for Breslov Chassidim, for him, for everybody. Especially on Lag Baomer, that already on a few days before Lag Baomer, there's already people who come to Meron already being in Isaac in avodas Hashem. They already sleep there, they already camp out there, whatever. Also today you have people like that, right? Everybody's davening and saying Tehillim and learning Zohar, and they're singing and dancing, especially on Erev Lag Baomer. Who could explain the great chiyas that we felt going to Meron on foot? And it says on Erev Lag Baomer, the way to Meron from Tzfas was filled with women, men, and children going to Rabbi Shimon. And afterwards, they would go to Sefer Torah, which is in Tzfas. There's an old minhag started about 199 years ago by the Mishpachat Abu. This is not from the book. I'm just telling you what he's talking about. Is that one year he decided that everybody's going to Meron anyway, so let's go with the Sefer Torah and dance. So they would bring the Sefer Torah every year from Tzfas to Meron and dance with it. It's a whole thing, and they still do it today. I don't know if they actually bring it to Meron, but they dance around the city with it, and they make a big Suda. It's a whole thing. And he says that when they bought Sefer Torah, now we're back in the book, he says in Tzfat it was great Simcha Gedola. Especially when they came to the Meron with the Sefer Torah, there was great dancing and singing and all these things. And even the people inside the caver would go out to greet the Sefer Torah. It was like a thing every year. The Sefer Torah went, everybody knew that the Sefer Torah came at a certain time, whatever, and everybody went outside and danced with it. It was a very, very special thing. And especially inside by the Tzion of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, there was a great hisoyrus of people learning there and doing hispaidus and tshuva and learning Zohar. And he's talking about all the different memories he has of them. And when they bought Sefer Torah, there was nothing like this in the world. People felt such embarrassment that they were so far from Hashem, and they would cry from simcha, and their tears would fall down their faces. He says there was no even on Yom Kippur, it wasn't the same. There was such a soyrus on Meron Lag Baomer Meron. It wasn't even like it was even higher than Yom Kippur Kilo. He says whoever did not see this did not see any hisoyrus in his day. And especially when it came to the tefillos of Mincha on Erev Lag Baomer, Oz Anachnu Chasidei Breslov Misal Mincha. So now he's like talking in the future. He like does this in the book where he like goes into the future. Because right now, he's not really Breslov, he doesn't really know anybody yet. But he's talking about in the future later on. Like he's talking about different years. Because he was always in Meron Lag Baomer. He was always in Meron a lot. He says that on Erev Lag Baomer, Chasidei Breslov without Mincha, with the niggin of Mincha of Erev Rosh Hashanah, of Uman. And everybody was filled with tshuva and osiris and tears. And then there was the Ma'ariv, and then there was Sfiras Ha'omer. And the whole entire night of Lag Baomer and Lag Baomer Kol Hayoim, everybody was dancing and singing and learning and craziness, and it was just beautiful. And the voices and the tefillos, the volume, the sounds did not stop for even 1 second there, the whole entire night, the whole entire day. And inside the chutzner of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, everybody would be dancing the whole entire time for 24 hours straight, and all these different things. So he just explains more about Lag Baomer now. He said that there's times where we saw straight up miracles happen by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and in the morning after the whole entire night of dancing, it would start the mitzvah that everybody would shave their, everybody would do upsharons on the kids and make them payas, and they would dance with this. This is also a very, very special thing to see. And he says that when everybody would go there to Rabbi Shimon, the first thing to do is that they would go inside to the Tzion, and he would awaken himself into tshuva, and he would speak to Hashem in hispoidus, and with yiras haroyimus and busha, v'chiyas lifnei Hashem, and then he would go out to then he would go outside and dance. And in the morning also, the minhag was that people would go daven on the kivrei tzadikim in Meron, which are Hillel from Beis Hillel and Shammai and Rabbi Yochanan HaSandler's caver, and also the Kisei of Eliyahu, which is like the mountain way further back behind the Tzion. And they would go to the mikveh in the Megiddo spring, which is a natural spring there. And Rabbi Shmuel Horowitz says that it's basically impossible to explain everything that happened, but how beautiful it was and how special it was. And after that, people would go back to Tzfas and Yerushalayim, and many people would stay in Meron. And then the night afterwards, they would even do another hadlaka, and they would still stay, and there was still a lot of things going on. And he says that in the whole entire Eretz Yisrael, the simcha nechiyas and the avodah shenas and teichav achar Pesach, that this joy and this preparations would for Lag Baomer would start after Pesach. Right, everybody would already start going on Mekayim Zedidayishim, like we spoke about last week from Pesach Sheni. They would go to Shechem by Kever Yosef HaTzadik, and in Haifa by the cave of Eliyahu Hanavi, and all these other places. And people would go to Tiberia to Rabbi Meir Balanes and Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai and his students, and Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi and the Shlah Kodesh and the Rambam and Rav Chia and his sons and Rav Hamnuna Saba, who I believe is not buried in Tiberia, but maybe he is, I'm not sure, and Rabbi Kiva and all these things, and Rav Kahana, Vitamid of Rabbi Yirmiyah, who was buried by Rabbi Meir Balanes, and also they would go to the hot springs of Tiberia. And they would go to the basic kvaros for the students of the Baal Shem Tov, and Rabbi Nachman Hari Denker, and Rabbi Avram Kalisker, and Rabbi Mendel of Premishlan, and the Rav of Misha Petifke, and Rabbi Zev Micharnas Strohal. That's a lot of tzaddikim, Baruch Hashem. People would also go to the Kivrei tzaddikim of the women, which were Bilhah and Zilpah, Yocheved, the mother of Moshe and Aaron, and Tzipora, the wife of Moshe. I don't know, they buried there? I guess they are, yeah. Yeshua Basaminadav, and all these things. And then people would go to Tzvas to go to other kibbutz. This is like, he's talking about like what everybody does today, it's crazy. They would go to the Arizal, and to the Ridvaz, and to the Ramak, and to the Mabit, and Rabbi Shlomo Alkabetz, and all these things. And it's very, very special things. And everybody would go toward the shuls, just like today. And that's what happened on Lag Baomer on those days over here. And all right, the next chapter, I guess, is going to talk about meeting the Breslov Chassidim, and we're going to go deeper into this whole life of Rabbi Shmuel Horowitz. We still have so much to learn, Baruch Hashem.